President Assad vowing Syria will retaliate if Israel strikes his country again. Now, earlier this month, you might remember these reports that Israel carried out strikes to stop suspected shipments of weapons to Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon. Syria did not respond at the time. Syria, of course, is the route between Iran and Lebanon to get these weapons through. President Assad warns, though, that Syria will retaliate next time. The Golan Heights may be the target. It's a territory that lies between the two countries. Israel has occupied the Golan Heights since the 1967 war. That word occupy, we should be a little bit careful about. That is part of their country now since the 1967 war. The conflict between Israel and Syria over the region dates back decades. Israel and Syria fought two wars in 1967 and 1973 over this territory that Syria continues to claim today. The two countries have exchanged fire over that territory periodically since then, most recently just back on May 21st when Israeli and Syrian army troops exchanged some fire along the ceasefire line. So we'll watch that in that particular area of Israel. As President Assad ratchets up his rhetoric, there are some new concerns that Assad's downfall is far from certain. Officials in Washington thought, and you heard this, it was only a matter of time before rebel forces overthrew Assad. But that tone has changed in recent weeks. The real game changer on the ground, according to our next guest, is the training and equipment provided by Iran's Revolutionary Guards, who have helped train thousands and thousands of fighters in Syria on the regime's behalf. Con Coughlin is the defense editor for The Telegraph. So, Con, this is not a surprise to you to learn that President Assad right now looks to be in an okay position.
Well, good morning, Jenna. Yeah, I mean, I think the position now is the pendulum in the conflict is now swinging firmly towards President Assad. And I'm told the reason this is happening from the military experts that are watching this very closely is the impact Iran's Revolutionary Guards have had since they came into Syria at the end of last year. I reported last September that 150 Iranian Revolutionary Guards had gone to Syria to help train the Assad forces. This was at a time when the Assad forces were on the defensive. The defense minister was blown up in a suicide attack, and as you said in your introduction, a lot of officials thought it was just a matter of time before Assad fell. But the whole tide of the war now, since the Iranians arrived, is swinging back towards Assad. Literally thousands of Syrian pro-Assad volunteers have now been trained by the Iranians, and their presence on the battlefield at places like Qusair, where there's been a fierce battle over the last couple of weeks, and also in clearing the rebels out of the suburbs of Damascus. This is, I'm told, down to the presence of the Iranians, who've really helped to put some discipline into the Syrian fighters and make them into an effective fighting force.
It's interesting to hear your reporting, because when we've spoken with some of the reporters that have been most recently inside Syria, they say the same thing, that the pendulum really has come back. And I'm curious, as we've seen the events over recent weeks, you see Britain take a move about potentially arming the rebels. You see Senator McCain going and visiting Syria, of whether or not those moves are because of Iran rather than what President Assad is really doing.
Well, there are some people, particularly in Washington, who think that we should arm the rebels because the best thing that could happen would be for Assad to be overthrown, because that would send a signal to Iran, which is the Assad regime's main regional ally, that we mean business with Iran. But, of course, the real problem with arming the rebels, and we've been looking at that very closely here in London during the last week, is which rebels do you support? Do you support the National Coalition, which is basically a secular pro-Western group, which is friendly to the West, or are you going to end up arming the Al-Qaeda elements within the opposition, which are doing a lot of the fighting and want to establish an Islamic State in Damascus? So we've got to be very careful. And, of course, while we deliberate, but both the presence of the Iranians and also the support that the Assad regime is getting from Russia with the delivery of these anti-aircraft missiles, this is a game changer on the ground. And unless the rebels, A, can organise themselves into an effective force, and B, can persuade the West to give them the arms they need, well, I think we should get used to the idea that this Assad regime is going to be around for a very long time to come.
Very interesting. Khan, it's always great to have you on the program. Thank you for this reporting and sharing it with us, and we look forward to having you back.
Pleasure, Jenna. Good morning.